Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 125 episodes of mead making, education, information, and entertainment. More than 80 guests have stopped by the Mead House. Professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey specialists have all visited to share their knowledge. The Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a key holder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support. So get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. Hey, you can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House. Mead making entertainment you just don't want to miss. Founded in 1984, Chelsea Green Publishing is recognized as a leading publisher of books on the politics and practice of sustainable living, publishing authors who bring in-depth practical knowledge to life and give readers hands-on information related to organic farming and gardening, ecology and the environment, healthy food, sustainable economics, and a whole lot more. Hey, you can also find books such as Brew Like a Yeti and Make Mead Like a Viking by one of our featured guests here on the Mead House, Jeremy Zimmerman. Plus, Wild Crafting Brewer by Pascal Bowder. Pick up these excellent brewing books from Chelsea Green Publishing at chelseagreen.com. And hey, Chelsea Green, thanks for supporting the 2019 Iron Bee. Hey, welcome to the Mead House, and thanks for listening to episode number 135. You know where to find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeartRadio. There's a whole lot of other places too. They're all listed on the website. Hey, the Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers just like you, looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. Hey, you can talk to us. We're on Facebook and Twitter, both at the Mead House, or you can email us at info@themeadhouse.com. Jeff and Ryan are both seated at the bar. I'm JD Webb. Hey, in segment 1, if you can pry him off his Harley, he might brew you up something really tasty to drink. And if you can pry him off long enough, he might even fire up the barbecue and cook you up a steak to go along with that something tasty to drink. He's an avid Mead House listener and a key holder. Home mead maker Michael Trainer joins us at the bar this episode. In segment 2, What's in the Hopper? We'll take it around the table, project updates. We'll figure out what Jeff, Ryan, and JD have been up to. Hey, and in segment 3, Facebook friends, of course, this is where we try to answer questions based on no formal experience, no formal expertise other than our own experience in our own brew house. All that and more here at the Mead House. Thanks to all the Mead House key holders who help keep the Mead House podcast free. You too can become a Mead House key holder and help support the show for as little as $2 a month. We've got some great thank you gifts. And all you got to do is just get over to patreon.com, search for the Mead House, click on the link in the show notes, and we'll take you right there. Hey, what are we drinking here tonight? I'm double fisting it tonight. I'm finishing off the last of the sugar maple from Sap House Meadery, guys. I tell you, this stuff, Sap House puts out some of the best meads I've ever had. This is big time honey character right off the bat, right on the nose. Mildly sweet, not overbearing, got a nice tartness to it, and it's sugar maple, but you don't get it's not a maple syrup mead. Don't make the mistake of misreading that label. It does have maple syrup in it, but that maple syrup was added to give it a little bit of mouthfeel. And right on the finish, you can start tasting that maple syrup as it leaves your palate. Man, this stuff is really good. In my other fist, I'm drinking a couple of fingers of Old Forester 1910. Now, if you can get your hands on this stuff, get a couple bottles. It's a rarity, hard to find. This is a great sipper. On the nose, you get quite a bit of brown sugar. I get a little bit of buttercream, a little bit of maple up front. The taste on it, a little bit of oatmeal raisin cookies. Man, that stuff is so good. A kind of a hint of chocolate, some graham cracker, lots of caramel to finish. You get that oak tannin in there, a little hint of vanilla. It's sweet and it's smooth, and this stuff is amazing. So if you want to participate in a good bourbon, Old Forester 1910, get you a bottle. Really good stuff. I'd even soak some oak in it and toss it into a mead. Let's see, Jeff, what's in your cup tonight, bud?
Sure. So I have a couple different cups going on as usual. Cup number one is actually it's one of the same things I was drinking last week. My Saison Braggot version 2. I'm down to less than a gallon in this keg, and I have in the last week I've gone through and deep cleaned like 4 of my kegs in my collection. I really want to add this last one to that mix and just get them all done at once so that everything is nice and clean. I've gone through and replaced all the O-rings and done all the very fiddly little the maintenance stuff. So
Yep.
If I can just get everything gone at once, I'll be a happy little camper. And we'll talk about what I'm filling those up with probably in segment 2 here. In my other cup, it's actually another one of my meads. This is one that I got some inspiration from Brian and did a hibiscus sizer. And I finally bottled it up a couple weeks ago. It's very nice. It's got I really like the balance in this one between the apple and the hibiscus flavors. The apple provides kind of like a little sweetness, a little complement of honey on the nose. The hibiscus gives it some tartness that kind of just bumps up that little slight tart apple flavor that effect. They play very nicely together. I'm very pleased with this, even if it's kind of a small batch, and I'm probably not going to kind of any competitions or anything. I think this is a very nice batch. And, I couldn't be happier with it.
Sounds good. Good stuff. Well, Ryan, what did you put in your cup tonight?
Well, I've got one in my cup, and I got one on standby in case we get to it. The one in my cup tonight is my grapefruit peel Ryan Braggot, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's extremely light in color and brilliantly clear. It's got Pilsen malt in it, and I believe this one was orange blossom honey. No, I take that back. Wildflower. It's wildflower honey. So the Pilsen malt, wildflower honey, and I think it was some Oaxaca hops, and then had the grapefruit peel, the dried grapefruit peel that went in the hop bag. Essentially, it went right in the hop bag. So I did the hopping at flame out. Well, then I also had some grapefruit peel that was sitting in vodka and made a tincture on that, and then added that before bottling. And it's drinking really well. It's got the grapefruit bitterness. It doesn't have a lot of the grapefruit juiciness. Now you know it's there. The grapefruit's there and you can taste it, but it's very subtle and it's coming across as like another. It's like almost like that bitterness. I guess a bitter you get there. It's not like some of these pale ales or IPAs I've had lately that have grapefruit juice in them and taste super juicy in that way, or sweet or fruity in that way. But no, it's absolutely delicious. It's somewhere between I want to say 5.5% to 6% ABV, so it's great on a hot day. It's great anytime you can crush a few of these. I'll tell you, I got the second bottle backing me up here, and if I end up opening that, I'll get into it. But if not, I know I'm going to drink that one next week, so I'll talk about it then.
There you go. What'd you think of those?
I know it's a little bit bittersweet because I know this is one you can't enjoy.
Yes,
but,
that's right. But
take my word for it, it's pretty good.
What'd you think of those Azacca hops? I got those cooking in another project I got going right now. What did you think of those hops?
I like them. I picked these out because they're supposed to complement the grapefruit. They're supposed to bring some grapefruit flavor along with them, and I think they do. I think it goes great in this. I kind of want this citrusy flavor, and I really like it. I think it's going really well. Azaccas are a good hop. I think I'll use those again.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff, Ryan.
Yeah. Well, getting into our guest tonight, Michael Trainer. On December 29th, 2017, this biker and fan of all things fermented pitched yeast on his first homebrew ever. Do you guys remember the date that you guys started your first batch, or I guess pitched the yeast on your first batch?
I've had too much to drink.
I don't.
Incidentally, yes, but that's kind of beside the point. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had too much to drink between then and now.
The first thing I ever did was cider, just straight cider, and I can tell you the approximate year, but I don't think I can get any tighter than that. Anyway, his love of mead making was born. In a few days, he started 4 more batches, and by the end of 2018, so that's about a calendar year later, he had made 20 different batches totaling about 75 gallons. Yeah, I think we've all
been there.
Kind of been there. And then in 2019, so now by the end of this year, he thinks he's going to double that. So, wow, it'd be 150 gallons. That'll make for a hell of a weekend.
Yeah.
If he can manage to stay off his motorcycle for more than a week, and I know he's been on the bike. When we were trading emails, he was on one of those trips. Welcome to the show, Michael. Where are you, and what's in your cup tonight?
So, thanks for having me on the show. I'm actually in Midland, Texas right now. I had come out here for business for a couple of days, and so I hate to be the one to do it, but I'm breaking with Mead House tradition tonight, guys. I don't have 2 glasses in front of me.
Uh-oh.
I have 8.
You have 8.
I have 8 glasses in front of me. So a couple of months ago, I did a Yelp and Holly traditional test batch with 6 different yeasts. And so I'm going through and sampling each one of those yeasts. I brought them with me because I was going to meet up with Moises Martinez, who's also been on the show, and hung out with him for a little while to try these, and he didn't partake. So I've got all these little bottles that I have to drink. So, so there's 6 of those. And then I've got Moises left me with a bottle of his blueberry Melomel, which is fantastic. And then I'm sampling a mead from Texas Mead Works, which is also a collaboration with myself, called BAM. And it's about 12% chocolate, vanilla, ancho chilies, and coffee, aged in a bourbon barrel that had held Prairie Bomb.
Oh, wow.
And that was my recipe, and we brewed that together, and I brought one of the bottles to give to Moises and said, "You can have this," after I take a glassful.
Wow.
So that's what I'm drinking.
Wow, that sounds good. Almost sounds like a mole.
It's kind of close to a mole. The coffee actually throws it way off from being a mole.
Yeah.
The all of the flavors are very subtle. It's one of the most interesting things I've ever drank. I've done tests with it, starting at drinking it at 45 degrees, and every 5 degrees I take a sip and take tasting notes and aroma notes, and it changes every 5 degrees.
Yeah.
It goes from being coffee to being chocolate to being ancho chilies, and at 135 degrees, it's pure bourbon.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Go ahead, Ryan. I cut you off, bud.
No, I was gonna say I was on a show a while back, not our show. I was on a different show a while back, and I had a lineup of I don't know, 10 meads in front of me, and it got a little interesting towards the end. So we'll see if you can hang with us here.
I'm taking very small sips.
It always starts that way. I was asked by somebody, listen to the show and said, Ryan, how'd you get that sloshed? And I said, slowly at first, and then really fast.
Wow.
So you've made quite a bit of meads. I mean, your first year you made 20 batches. Your second year you made 75 gallons. Your third year you said you're going to make about 150 gallons. Where have you found a lane that you feel that you've explored, or a couple lanes that you've explored more dominantly than other lanes? And what I mean by that is, braggots or melomels or traditionals or things like that, or are you just all over the place all the time?
A little bit of all over the place, but that said, I have a couple of recipes that I keep making over and over again, and I make them in 5-gallon batches. One of them is my version of Carvin Wilson's cucumber lime mead, which is just absolutely amazing. I've actually never had a chance to try his actual version of it. I've met Carvin a few times, but he's never had it with him. But I varied from the recipe a little bit, and so mine is different.
Well, his is very good. I've had it right out of the keezer in his garage, and it's very good. But what I like about that that mead he has, and frankly a lot of other meads, is that I could see how that you could make your own modifications or tweaks to it, and it would be, you could suit it to your own needs. It's kind of one of those that I think, you could add a few things here and there and have it turn out very well. So tell me tell me about your version. What have you done to make it Michael Trainer version?
So the only actual difference, the entire recipe is 100% the same, except, and I've made it per his recipe, but the version that I've started making that I really like, and I've made 3 batches of it now, and it doesn't last, each 5-gallon keg doesn't last a month in my house. Carvin's original recipe, he uses QA23 as the yeast, and I'm using a French Saison yeast and fermenting at higher temperature to get more of a peppery note, and that peppery quality comes out really nice with the cucumber.
Interesting. I've been playing around a little bit with Omega's new Lithuanian farmhouse yeast, Jovaru, and it does put out they say a lemon pith and black pepper esters. It's not like the Norwegian farmhouse ale yeast that you can ferment at 700 degrees or on the surface of the sun. These are it's a little bit little bit more in the traditional range of temperatures. But hearing you talk about that, and I know how much of an experimenter you are. Maybe one of these times you try that. If you can get your hands on any of that Omega Lithuanian Jovaru, I would be interested to hear what you think of it with that yeast.
I think that would be a fantastic idea. The first thing that came to my head is when you said lemon pith, or say lemon or orange pith.
It's lemon pith. Now, the mead I'm drinking right now is actually made with that yeast. It's not in your face by any means.
Oh, okay, because I'm thinking that extra tartness on top of the vegetal character and the lime, I think I would actually have to add, I would have to back sweeten a little bit more just to combat that, to bring it more in balance. Probably bring it up to about 1010 instead of 1006.
I'd love to hear a follow-up.
Yeah, and I definitely will. I've done one experiment with the Omega yeast so far, and I've gotten to try several other people's things that they've done with them, and I've been blown away by the tasting notes on them. They're just fantastic.
The last time I kind of half-assed hooked up with Michael was a couple, maybe a week or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. Michael, this little thing popped up on my Facebook deal. It says Michael Trainer is live. And I thought, oh, what the hell is he doing? Maybe he's working on a mead or something. So I clicked on the damn thing, and here you are, hauling ass down the highway on your Harley, headed God knows where.
I'm pretty sure that day I was in northern Utah.
Yeah.
We were on a bike trip heading up to Calgary, Canada.
Yeah, I was
just a little jealous right there. Just a little jealous.
Yeah, I've put 14,000 miles on my motorcycle since Memorial Day. That's not it, though.
Yeah,
that is.
I just thought that was a kick in the ass when I clicked on that, and here comes this picture. And instead, I was fully expecting to see you working on a mead somewhere in your basement somewhere, and a picture opens up, and Michael cruising down the highway on his Harley. Awesome stuff, Mike. What are your favorite ingredients to work with? You've only been doing this for a couple of years now.
Not even 2 years yet.
Yeah,
it'll be 2 years this December. So, right now, I've got access to a wildflower honey that is very malty, and I use it in most of my meads that I do. It's very malty. It brings just this beautiful flavor forward. That's one of my favorite ingredients to use.
Yeah.
But honestly, smoked pineapple and hops.
Mm.
I have a session mead, 6.5% carbonated session mead that I do. That is, I take 2 pounds of pineapple for a 5-gallon batch. I put it in the smoker with pecan wood.
Oh wow! And
smoke it until it's good and caramelized, and throw it in the boil, and throw about a half ounce of Galena in the boil with it for about 30 minutes, and then rapid cool it and bring it down to about 120. Throw my honey in, bring it up to about 1060. Transfer it over to my fermenter, let it cool down, pitch yeast, let it go for a day, and then I'll feed it. I'll degas it. I'll feed it, and I'll hop it. I'll dry hop it with a half ounce of Citra, a half ounce of Mosaic, and a half ounce of Equinox, and let those sit for 4 days. By that point, it's fully dry. Rack off of it. Cold crash it, stabilize it, and then right before I'll back sweeten it and then make sure that it's stable, and then I'll add another 2 ounces of hops, half ounce of each of the hops that I added before, for 4 more days, and then keg it. And that is my favorite thing that I've made thus far. It's just blown me away, and it's done really good in competition so far. So,
well, for someone who has only been doing this for a couple of years, I mean, you have literally jumped in the deep end with both feet. Because, dude,
it's your fault, JD.
Yeah. You're doing stuff that I haven't even thought of yet. I mean, you know, what took you there? Yeah, don't tell me it's my fault.
I've been listening to the show. I was listening to the show for more than a year before I pitched my first piece.
Yeah.
I was using you guys as research. And I was nervous. I was trepidatious. I'd never brewed anything.
Yeah.
You know, I drank everything under the sun, but I'd never brewed before. And I'll be honest, I was scared of it. And I listened to y'all's show, and I listened to a few other shows, and I got on some of the Facebook groups, and you know, read everything that I could, and I talked to friends of mine who were home brewers, but I didn't know anybody that brewed me.
Yeah.
And I actually got started buying Texas Meadworks semi-sweet traditional and taking a 750 bottle, dumping it in a quart mason jar, and playing with it, adding adjuncts to it, barrel aging it. Just coming up with just all kinds of different things and trying different things. And I did that for a good 6 or 8 months. And I kept taking them up to Mike Poole, the owner of Texas Meadworks, and saying, here, try this. And finally one day he goes, when are you going to brew your own? I don't know.
Yeah.
And and the reason I remember the exact date I pitched my first batch is because it was right after Christmas, right before New Year's. And I did probably the stupidest thing one could ever do. My first batch that I pitched was I got my hands on a local apiary had gotten their hands on a 55 or a 50-gallon barrel from Balcones. And they bourbon barrel aged their honey. And then packaged it in 1 gallon or in 1 pound bottles at $20 a bottle. And I bought 3 of them, and that was the first 1 gallon batch that I ever made.
Okay.
$60 worth of honey.
$50. Oh my God.
So how much bourbon came out in that 3 gallon or the 3 pound honey 1 gallon batch?
It actually came out enough. You could taste the bourbon on the honey. You could also taste the oak. When I fermented it, it lost some of the aromatics. It lost some of my temperature control wasn't there. It did lose a little bit of the flavor. Now that said, I submitted that mead to Domrus Cup under the experimental category because it was bourbon barrel aged. Even though I didn't bourbon barrel age it, just the honey was bourbon barrel aged. And it got honorable mention, which is essentially fourth place. Somebody was arguing for it. So that made me pretty happy. And I'm completely out of it. I've drank every bottle that was left. And it's not something I'm ever going to repeat because that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for an okay honey. And I've told you before, JD, that you know I plan on bourbon barrel aging my own honey. Yeah. My daughter's boyfriend is a beekeeper, and so I get honey from him, and I can throw it in whiskey barrels that I have a neighbor who doesn't distill, but he does his own bourbon barreling.
Yeah.
He ages his own bourbons. He buys White Dog from whatever distillery he feels like, and he buys oak and cubes and chips and whatnot, and he does his own custom barrel aging, and then he gives me the barrels.
Yeah. Well, hey, that works. They're already tuned up.
Yep.
That's awesome. I mean, obviously you've picked up some of your inspiration from the show here, but I know that you've been talking to Carvin. I mean, you have made the circuit. I mean, you've talked to a lot of people. Moises Martinez, probably one, and we got to get him back on the show again too. I mean, this kid, he like you, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty and try anything. And he's a hell of a chef too.
Yeah, I wish we'd have had more time to get some food out of him.
Yeah. And the folks like you guys give us, I guess you give us, I don't know, Ryan, what would you call it? Reason for being here.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't do this just to kill a couple hours each week and on air and a couple more in prep just to talk to each other. I think that the biggest thrill we get, or the most reward we get, are when people tell us that they've listened to us and they learned something from us, or they've been inspired by us, or they took something that we said and it helped them in some way. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to hear that a few times, and it always makes me feel good about what we're doing. We don't claim to be the experts in everything, and we're not trying to run an academy here or anything. We're just common men trying to help out the common man and common woman mead maker, and maybe a little bit beyond that, but just like you said, maybe somebody that is intimidated by other forums or things about maybe getting in there, and we try to be a good entry point in that way. Michael, I wanted to ask you something there about that bourbon barrel honey that you tried. Do you think, I mean, now you've probably played around a lot. I don't know if you've used anything like the oak spirals or the honeycomb sticks, or the barrel stage, things like that, but do you think that you could replicate that what was a very good mead, it sounds like, by using some oak products and bourbon, like soaking some oak chips and bourbon in a mason jar and then just adding that, versus having to get this very expensive honey?
So it's almost like I fed you that question, because I have. So a couple of months ago, I took a quart mason jar and a 750 of a White Dog that I can get locally, pecan smoked white whiskey. Beautiful whiskey, and matter of fact, I might throw that in the box I'm sending to JD. And so I soaked an entire 5-gallon spiral in that whiskey for about 6 weeks. I way over oaked the whiskey, which it's still drinkable. If I cut it, it'll be better. Then I took that spiral, put it in a mason jar, and filled that mason jar up with wildflower honey. And within 2 days, the honey had pretty much extracted every ounce of liquid out of that oak.
Yeah.
And I would sit there and mix it up and make sure that the all of the liquid floated up to the top of the honey, and it flowed freely, and you could tell that there was honey mixed in with it. So I would sit there and mix it up, get it back into the honey, and the next day I would come down and it had floated back up to the top. So after a while, I pitched yeast on that, and it's currently cold crashing. So I don't know if it's going to be as good as the original batch, but I'll find out. And then to make JD happy, I did the exact same experiment with tequila.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So those should be seeing the light of day here pretty soon if I could ever stay home for more than a week.
I'm telling you, I think there's a lot to be. I need to get my mason jars out and start playing a little bit more with these little chunks of wood. We found this one source, Black Swan. We keep talking about them. And they got the most terrific little spirit chunks of oak. You drop in spirit bottles, whiskeys, tequilas, whatever, rums. I mean, you name it. And they come in different flavors. I mean, there's maple wood, cedar wood, oak, of course, just to name a few. And I'm telling you, I have been so impressed at what they have given up. I think there's more to be done even in the mead world with these little chunks of wood soaked in different spirits and whatnot, because what they have given up has just been unbelievable. I mean, I've turned plain old, silver tequilas into the most amazing tasting añejo tequilas. And then to soak a piece of wood in that and put that in some honey or put that in some mead, or a braggot. I mean, it just opens up a whole other world.
Completely.
Yeah. So is there anything that you, and you've done a lot, Michael, in the last couple of years. Is there anything you have not done yet that you hope to do here in the future?
Well, yeah, win a medal at Mazer Cup.
When
no.
Well, before you get to Mazer Cup, are you registered for Valkyrie's Horn?
I'm not, and I feel bad about that. It's mostly because I don't think I could. When is the cutoff for entries for Valkyrie?
I believe it's September. It's that first or second week in September. Trying to pull it up here myself, but let's just say the first half of September.
Okay, so if I can get entries ready, I've got a 24 cubic foot chest freezer full of stuff that's half done. And I blame JD for that because temperature control.
I got the 411 on your temperature control. I'll get into that here in just a minute. But go ahead.
Okay, so if I can get some stuff together and get it registered and get it up there, I may also register to judge or steward, because I need to get my son lives in Mankato, and he has my two granddaughters, and I haven't seen them in 2 years. So I need to get up there and come see them, and that would be I wanted to make it for Iron B, and there was no way I could do it between all my trips. So if I can convince my wife to let me go.
Yeah, I mean, it's September 7th. September 7th is the cutoff date, so hopefully you can get some stuff up there. You can also, it'd be great to have you up to judge or steward. I know we're looking for folks to do that as well. And Mankato is about an hour away, and so not only should you come up and see, you see your granddaughter or grandkids, you see granddaughters, but then next year make sure that we see you up here for the Iron B as well. We'd love to have you join back, and you can make a family trip out of it as well. Because the Iron,
I would love to.
One dayer, so one day with us and one day with the family.
I would love to. My wife's whole family's from up there too. So, but talking about Valkyrie, you guys mind if I give a quick plug?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Texas Mead Cup registration is open. The judging will take place the 17th and 18th of October, I believe, and Texas Mead Fest is October 19th. And I've already got my entries in, and you guys need to as well. There's plenty of spots.
There you go. Jeffy, you got anything for Michael before we cut him loose here?
Yeah, let's circle back to the Iron B real quick. You were a participant in the competition as well. We've talked to some of the award winners on the show as far as how they approached that fenugreek ingredient and things like that. Presented with a strange ingredient, had you ever worked with fenugreek before? And if so, if not, how did you approach it for your entry into the competition?
Well, considering that my entry's name was "What the F is Fenugreek,"
I can dig that.
I'd never heard of it, so I did some research on the interwebs and found out what it was used for in Indian cuisine, and seriously considered doing a curry mead, and I kind of kick myself now for not doing that. I ended up, what I did was I made a tea with the fenugreek itself, and that was the water that I used for my must. I used South Texas brush honey, which was a mix of Yalpin, Wahio, and a couple of other slightly more obscure honeys that I got from Walker Honey Farm here in Texas. And then I started it fermenting, and I dry hopped it with the fenugreek and let it go, and finally pulled the fenugreek when the aroma just became overwhelming. The maple aroma was just jumping out of my fermenter like you wouldn't believe. Bottled it up, or let it rest for quite a while, and stabilized it, and back sweetened it a little bit with the brush honey, and basically just did it as a methaglow. I thought it gave an amazing honey, or an amazing maple character, better than any Acer Glen I've ever had. And I had a couple of ideas of things to do, but I was advised, don't mess with this. This is perfect the way it is. So I listened to my mentor and sent it up, and my scores weren't great, but I'm okay with that. It was a learning lesson. It was first time working with an ingredient.
Sure.
And I've realized now, next time, buy more and do about 5 or 6 different test batches and play with it.
Well, all things considered, I'm looking at your scores here on just my judges short sheet, and all in all, I think the Iron B was a little bit of a low scoring competition because your scores were actually fairly decent. You were definitely in the upper half of the scores, probably in the upper quarter. So yeah, your entry was nothing to sneeze at from what I'm seeing here.
Okay, yeah, if I remember right, I think I averaged a 33 or something like that. Yeah.
Hey, it's a good start,
Yeah,
For
yeah, and
something-
for an ingredient that I'd never worked with before.
Absolutely.
And dealing with a format that was that loose and open, I didn't know what I was going to be going up against.
Yeah.
Had I thought about it, yeah, I could have done a blueberry pancake, with maple syrup.
There you go.
I could have done that.
IHOP, here we come.
I thought about doing a cranberry chutney.
Oh, that sounds good too.
That does sound good.
Wow, yeah,
that was one of the ideas that I had with it. My mentor in all things mead, he absolutely loved it as it was, and to the point that he actually wants to make it as a commercial mead.
Cool.
So.
Well, hey, coming back to the chilling thing, go visit a hydroponic store or even an aquarium store, one that specializes in saltwater aquariums, and look into an aquarium chiller or a hydroponics chiller. You'll spend probably less than half the cost on one of those than you would one of these highfalutin glycol chillers. I've got one here that's chilling both of my fermenters. I just took my 96 degree braggot down to, right now it's sitting at 40 degrees with it, and then my other fermenter is chilling, it's cooling a mead at 60, fermenting at 66 degrees. It's about 74 degrees in the house. And this thing has worked like a charm now for over a year.
Nice.
It just picks up the water out of a small. Now I took a little small, I don't know, probably a 3-gallon, not even that, 2-gallon, little dinky little Coleman cooler. Built kind of a little insulated box for it to sit in. My pumps sit down inside. It circulates the water between the chiller and that little cooler. And then my other 2 pumps for the 2 fermenters sit inside that as well. So the chiller takes me down. I can go all the way down to, I think it's 36 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. I can actually get a fermenter. I've had one fermenter down to 38 degrees so far. Hard to maintain at that level, but I don't need to go that low. And I'm telling you, I mean, these things work like a champ. It's not like a glycol. I mean, if you're not looking to take a beer down to like 31 degrees, then these aquarium chillers, I think one I got's like a 1/4 horsepower. They work like a champ, dude. And I don't know what episode it was. I talked a little bit more about setting one up and went into a little more detail on it. But look into that as far as a cooling system for your fermentation systems.
So real quick, I know we're running long. I'm lucky enough. I have a 3-car garage.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have a 24 cubic foot chest freezer with an Inkbird temperature controller and
that works too.
In it. That's my fermentation chamber. Then I have a stand-up refrigerator and a 7 cubic foot chest freezer for cold crashing.
There you go.
So
hey, that works, man. That works.
Yeah,
Michael,
you got the equipment there.
Yeah. Hey, we got to get you back on again. I mean, we didn't cover half the stuff that I'm sure we probably could have. And I know we did keep you long here tonight. But dude, thanks for coming aboard, man.
Hey,
really,
thanks for having me.
And I look forward to the next Harley trip on Facebook. I'm sitting here watching this thing, and I couldn't. I fully expected. I mean, what a shocker! I fully expected to see you working away in your brew room, working on something, and here you are going down the road on your Harley. What a kick, dude!
Well, thanks for having me. Keep an eye out. I'll be sending those boxes out to you guys. Just so everyone knows, I bribed my way on the show. JD has a love for Sap House's Smoky Pete.
Oh,
And,
you have no idea. Yep.
And he got the last bottle from Sap
From
House.
Ash. Yep. Yeah. Yep. I did.
And now he's getting the first one.
There you go.
He's getting bottle number 1.
Oh, you let it out, man.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did. Everybody knows.
Spoiling this, man.
But yeah, those boxes will be in the mail next week when I get back from all my travels.
Hey, very good. Keep in touch, Michael.
Will do, bud. And if you guys ever open up a 4th chair, keep me in mind.
Absolutely,
All right.
man.
All right, thanks for stopping by.
All right, thanks. Y'all take care.
Take care, Mike.
Yeah, bye.
I mean, this cat from, just a little over 2 years ago starts making mead. And I mean, it's like, it's like taking a kid who's never been in a swim, doesn't know how to swim. You throw the life jacket on, you tell him jump in the deep end. I mean, this cat jumps in the deep end with both feet, and he's off and running. I mean, he's picking up his inspirations from the show here and other places, been talking to people. He gets out there and networks with a few folks, and he's not afraid to try. I mean, this dude is not afraid to push the envelope and to, come up with some new and interesting flavors. So good stuff, Michael.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there, I mean, that's a perfect way to approach it. Jump in with both feet, and if you think something's a little crazy, go ahead and try it. Because unlike us that are going to talk about it on the show, you don't have to own your mistakes.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the best way to approach it is to bribe us. Send JD something special.
Send some JD. Yeah, right. All right.
Only if you want to appear on the show. I mean,
yeah, moving on. Moving on. I hear that. Hey, segment 2. Hey, we're going to go around the table here. We've got a bunch of projects been working in what's in the hopper. But before we get to that, hey, Executive Gift Shop. Executive Gift Shop started as a small personalized gift store in Nanuet, New York in 1999, catering to the wedding and corporate gift industry. They built their reputation by providing unique, engraved, and personalized gifts at affordable prices. Over the years, they have added thousands of new products, many personalized and many that aren't. One thing that hasn't changed is their commitment to quality and, more importantly, their commitment to customer service. If you're looking for something special to add to your bar or to give as a gift to a home brewer or a corporate coworker, check out their line of drink accessories, from mugs and glassware to bar signs, coasters and coolers, wine accessories, and beer gifts. Executive Gift Shop will have what you're looking for. Executive Gift Shop. See their online catalog of gifts at executivegiftshop.com. Mead House would like to thank Executive Gift Shop for supporting the 2019 Iron B. Guys, let's take it around the table here. I'll start this one off. As soon as I take a drink of this outstanding sugar maple mead from Sap House.
Well, JD, while you're doing that, I wanted to give everybody a little bit of an update.
Go ahead.
On the Valkyrie's Horn, because last week I told everybody that I had taken a look at the entries so far to date, and wanted some more braggot entries. Well, I'm looking at the entries as of let's just say this morning, and a few more braggots made it in. So now there's always two weird things in the competition world. There's, I should say, one of them is how many people enter, but then how many actually show up. Now, what I like about some competitions is they try to keep categories as clean as possible. They keep the sweet meads, the sweet traditionals, judged against sweet traditionals, and dry traditionals judged against dry traditionals. and braggots judge against braggots, and historicals against historicals. Well, when you do that, you've also got to be cognizant of how many are coming in. So, for example, at last year's, I think it was last year's Orpheus Cup, those guys at Orpheus, I'll give them a lot of credit. They do a great job of keeping the categories clean. Now, I think they only got like 3 historical meads were sent in. And so, they only, I think, awarded like a first place medal. Because only 3 people there, they decided, hey, we're just, we're not going to give everybody a medal here. We're going to, let the best one stand up. So when you sign, not every mead that gets registered from the competition ends up getting sent in. And when you get fewer that get sent in, there's like a threshold for how many medals you give out for how many entries you have. So right now there are, we got a few more braggots in there. There's enough braggots. If every braggot made it in, there's enough for a first, second, and a third place getting awarded. But there is, if more get entered, and more make it in for sure, we can make this the big category I'd really like it to. So I still want to see all those braggots. Again, there's no limit on entries. There's no limit on category entries. So get those in. The other categories that if you're looking to find those categories that have less entries, and I'm probably not supposed to do this, but I'm going to tell you guys which categories have the fewest entries right now, just so that if you want to be one of those people that plays the odds, you can play the odds. Sweet meads, sizers, stone fruit meads, which is really surprising because, who loves a good cherry mead or a good peach mead?
Yeah.
And braggots I mentioned, and historicals. So if you're saying, hey, I want to play the odds, I want to find those categories that I can have the best chance of competition in, sweet meads, sizers, stone fruit meads, braggots, and historicals are where you can play the odds. The Capsamel category is getting a lot. I am really excited for this Capsamel category, and I want you to get into it. It's not the least entered by any means, but I think this Capsamel category will be a lot of fun, just because it is so wide open. Like I said, you could do a traditional with a habanero, a sizer with an Anaheim, a Polish with a Serrano. It's anything with a pepper in it is in this category. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and can't wait for everybody to get in. And we are going to have an amazing time. If you've been following the Valkyries Horn Facebook page, you might have seen some of the updates that have come through. I think a lot of them have come through there. So it'll be a great one. JD, I'll put it back over to you there.
All right. Well, hey, working around the horn here, project that we've got going on in our own little brew house. A couple of things that I've been working on here. Of course, the Scotch Ale braggot deal, that's in the keg. I've been tasting it about once a week, and I dropped that little, the piece of wood that I had soaking in some cognac. I dropped it in there, starting to come around a little bit more. And the odd thing is, now I'm starting to pick up a little more of that smoky peat malt that I had incorporated in the steeping grains for some reason. Before I wasn't. I was quite disappointed. Now it doesn't come around right up front. It's more on the back end, on the finish end. And sometimes you find that a little prevalent in even some of the scotches that I've had. Not necessarily, up front and in your face, but there's a definite hint of it on the back end, and you do get the sense that, yep, there's some smoky peat malt in this Scotch Ale braggot. So I'm okay with it for now. So I'm hoping that's going to pan out. It's got a long ways to go. I was hoping that I might be able to get this into Valkyries. I might just send a couple of bottles in for the hell of it. It's nowhere near done yet because there's 2 more chunks of wood we're talking months here before it's ready, because I got 2 more chunks of wood to go in after I pull the cognac out. So that's one. The other one, as I mentioned earlier during the show when we had Michael on, I've got this with Omega yeast, this Hornadal Kvik yeast. Dude, I'm telling you, fermented at 96 degrees. Those of you check out our Facebook page, you saw the post that I put up. I showed you the picture of the temperature controllers, 96 degrees. It is done. It has tapped out finally, and it's on it's been on a cool down now for 24 hours. It's down to 40 degrees now. That'll kind of encourage, some of that stuff to fall out, trub and whatnot. I'll let it sit there for, a few more days. I got to get a keg cleaned up and ready to go, and get it into a keg. But guys, I got a dilemma. Every time I go to the store, I buy frozen berries, I buy blackberries, and I bring them home. And I put them in, these gallon freezer bags, and I throw them in the freezer. Well, I've gotten to the point now where I can't even get our regular weekly shopping in the freezer. Okay, I mean, if I come home with a couple of pieces, I can't even get a piece of fish in either one. I got 2 freezers. Okay, so the wife says, "What are you going to do with all these berries in here?" Well, obviously, I need to do something. So I'm in a dilemma here. Now, Jeff, here's what I'm thinking. Okay, I'm probably guessing 10, 12 pounds, maybe 15 pounds of miscellaneous berries. Okay, from blackberries to raspberries to mixed berries, bags of mixed berries that I bought. So what I'm thinking, I have no idea what the displacement value of all this stuff is going to be. And so my thought was, you know what, just dump it in my big nylon bag and put it in the fermenter, and then add the honey and water and see where, bring it up to level, and then pull the berries out, get it all mixed up real good, and then throw the berries back in. I might wind up with only 3 gallons. I have no idea, dude.
Sure.
But I mean, you think that's a good starting point? I mean, kind of a harebrained idea, but what the hell?
That's like half of this show is harebrained ideas that we bring to fruition, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. That's definitely kind of the same approach I took with that 20 pounds of strawberries into a 5-gallon batch. I might end up with 3 gallons of mead, but looking at the bag, there was a lot of water that came out of those strawberries. There's not much strawberry. I don't even know what to call this other than the remains of the fruit, the fibrous material, whatever. The yeast pretty much took care of a lot of it, really. The yeast got in there, chewed it up, broke it apart, and there is not much left in that bag the last time I looked at it, and I'm getting ready to rack that into secondary here to work on clarifying that guy. But why not? I mean, you've got a pretty good supply of fruit there. It's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag as far as what's going into what, and I think that's okay. It sounds like a good idea.
It's one of those things where you go to the store and you see these great deals, and you think, oh, I'll use this for my next project. Come home, throw it in the freezer, and then it's in there for 4 weeks, and you go back to the store, and, oh, another bag of berries. I'll throw that in the freezer too. And a month later, you're back in the store again, and oh, there's those I can get another bag of berries to throw this. That'll be my next project. So you wind up accumulating all this crap, Ryan. Other than what I said to Jeff, just throw them all in the fermenter and then add the water, just to bring it up to level and figure out what the displacement's going to be and go from there. You got any thoughts on? It's like a mixed bag of tricks. I mean, we're talking blackberries, mixed berries, you name it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Make a fruit salad berry mead there. I mean, absolutely a mixed berry mead, I guess you'd call that.
Yeah.
That'd be. I think it'll be great. Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And then in my other fermenter, I finally put together. I've got just a straight up traditional mead. I use some of that South Dakota honey that I picked up. That's some amazingly good stuff. I mixed it half and half with some of my local wildflower. What an amazing concoction that made. Started out 10 or at 130. Used a couple of packs of 71B, so I'm looking for somewhere around 020 or so, because I know it's going to drop about 110, 112 points somewhere in there. So probably going to wind up with something between semi-sweet and sweet. Was going to throw that, I get this 5-gallon barrel, Balcones barrel, that's full of 5 gallons of bourbon now. And kind of refreshing. This will probably be the last use for this barrel. I was going to pull that bourbon out, rebottle it back up again, and as soon as this mead gets done fermenting, I'm just going to dump the whole thing into the bourbon barrel and just let it sit and see where it goes from there. So that's what's going on in the official Mead House. Ryan, I know you've got projects out the yin yang going on always. What's new this week?
Yeah. So I was just going to say before I lost my train of thought with Michael, he was talking about, you and Michael were talking about wood, and he had talked about smoking.
Yeah.
And what I do is I take those empty or used up spirals and honeycombs and chips and that kind of thing, and I throw those in the smoker when I'm smoking honey or hops or fruit or whatever it might be smoking. And I can't tell you if the mead soaked oak is putting off anything really unique, versus when you buy a hickory or apple or whatever you might be doing there. But it can't. It's a good way to make sure you're using up all of the byproduct from the mead, and I think it's pretty cool. I think it's I say, hey, this is a piece of soft maple that I had sitting on some traditional, and now I'm using it to smoke hops that are going to go into another mead, and that, so it's a cool thing to do.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of blending lately. I've got a lot of carboys of all different sizes sitting around the fermentation room. Everything from a half gallon to 1 gallon to 3 gallons to 5 gallons to 6 gallons, 6.5 gallons. And been doing a lot of blending and doing that. Like I said, a lot of blending, a lot of mixing around. So one of the things that I'm blending is actually the bottle that I got backed up here. I opened it up and I've been drinking it. It's fantastic. This was an orange mead, a blood orange mead that was made from some blood orange puree, and then also some blood orange, I don't know what they called it, the Amaretti. So not the little bottle of extract and not the compound, but the big bottle that you use, to
the artisan
is most commonly used for the brewing.
Artisan, yeah.
And I made it with that. It was orange blossom honey. So orange blossom honey, orange water. That's what it was. Orange water. So orange blossom honey, orange blossom water, orange, blood orange puree, and I think I also put like a pound or two of the Cascade beer, the blood orange beer candy syrup in this. So I was like orange on top of orange on top of orange on top of orange.
Wow.
And now then what I did is I that's in a carboy, like 3 gallons of that is just in the carboy by itself. Well, then I mixed in 2 different braggots that I had going. And one of the braggots was just an orange, like a Ryan braggot with orange blossom, honey, Pilsen malt, and I forget the hops, but the hops kind of had some sort of a citrus flavor to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second braggot was one that I had made with wheat and carrots. Actually, wheat and carrot braggot. I think that was like a wildflower honey. So I blended those 3 things together: the carrot wheat, the orange blossom braggot, and this orange melomel. And oh man, this is just so fantastic. This is it's just fantastic. It is exploding with orange flavor. The wheat, I used raw wheat, so the wheat is keeping it really hazy, somewhat like a New England IPA or something, where it's just super, super hazy.
Yeah.
But it's drinking just really well. It's got a lot of orange there, but not sweet. There's enough malt backbone in it to let you know you're drinking a braggot, and just very happy with this one. So that's what I've been doing a lot of blending.
Oh, interesting.
Now the second thing that I'm going to start making here is a lavender. I'm going to call it a lavender lemonade mead. So I'm using the lavender blossom honey from the bear honey.
Yeah.
And then also using the lavender amaretti compound, and then 2 liters of lemon juice with probably some mesquite honey, maybe some orange blossom, maybe a little bit of each, and then having this like lavender lemonade mead. Maybe I'll use some purple food coloring in it for the hell of it. But I've had lavender lemonade. It's great in the summer. I mean, it's like an adult kind of grown up thing. You take dried lavender leaves and you steep them into like making like a tea.
Yeah.
And then you use that to make your
lemonade.
Your lemonade, and you had your sugar, your honey, and then your lemons, and lavender lemonade is just like a grown up lemonade. It's great. So why not make that into a mead? So that'll be one that I do here for as we kind of get into Indian summer fall territory, because I'm going to do it at hydromel strength, and it should be great for the last part of the warm weather here.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'll toss the mic over to Jeff and let him take on what he's got working.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I've got a lot of kegs that I've been doing, the hardcore clean out and replacing all the seals, and I've been filling up a lot of my fermenters filling a lot of those kegs from fermenters. So I am left with a lot of fermenters that are ready to go, and I've got a couple projects I'm looking on. They're, to no one's great surprise, they're a lot of braggots and a couple other little guys, but I'm trying to capitalize on the last, month or so of really, really hot weather we're coming into for the summer. The first project that I'm really focused on is another iteration of my whip braggot, and I think I talked about this a while back, but the whip braggot is one of those that I keep repeating, and by God, if this could, if I had a kegerator and could just have one brew on tap, it would be this whip braggot. The last time I made it, I took a really basic grain bill of equal parts Belgian Pilsen malt and wheat malt. I kicked it up with a little bit of of carapils and a little bit of honey malt, just for the sake of adding a little extra. I had a lot of orange pith going into it. I want to say the pith of like 6 oranges, the juice of 3. I kind of dialed it just a little bit back on the coriander because it's not my favorite ingredient. And what came out was a very like bright, citrusy, kind of hazy braggot that really, really nice. I had used a basswood and clover blend that I picked up that I thought was really nice. It worked really nicely with it just because of the kind of that acidy character that the not what the basswood added to it. So I'm looking at reiterating that, and I've got a couple different tricks up my sleeve with this one. I'm looking at instead of using the basic Belgian wheat yeast that I'd used last time, I'm going to hit it with this the Yovaru or Yovaru, or I'm not sure which syllable the emphasis is on here, but that Ryan had mentioned earlier with like that lemon pith and peppery notes. I think that would be fantastic with this. And then we've also got some Styrian Wolf hops that came from ZA Hops, one of our sponsors of the Iron Bee, that has some interesting notes of like mango and candied orange peel that I think would be really nice with this. So I'm going to throw that in there as well, and just see what that kind of does to the mix, and try to bump up that citrusy flavor just a little bit more. I think that'd be really, really fantastic. I talked about a week or two back about a kind of a s'mores braggot. So I'm putting that together, and I'm kind of fine tuning how I want to get some of those specialty grains as far as like chocolate malt, the black malt, things like that, just to get the right balance before I throw in the s'mores compound from Amaretti. I'm also toying with the notion of putting that into my bourbon barrel just for a little bit and see if I can get some of that oaky character from it. That's opened up now as well. Mm-hmm. The last thing I want to try is just another one of these light session meats, but I had a really great dessert a couple weeks ago. It was just a little tart made with blueberry and lime, of all things. Oh, yeah. And that the flavor combination had never occurred to me before, but having tasted that, I kind of went, wow, this would make a fantastic mead. And I hit on the notion of doing that kind of similar to that the session mead style that we've talked about so many times. The blueberry flavor, the lime flavor, carb that up, make that nice simple mead, probably with some of the Omega fake yeast that we've been talking about so much. So yeah, I'm keen to try that as well.
Back in my cooking days, I was known in the family as quite the jam maker. And one of the favorites around the web house was my blueberry jam, and I tossed in some lime zest on top. Now it doesn't add a limey flavor. What it does is it actually brightens up the fruit. And I've added limes to blackberry jam, strawberry jam. The blueberry jam that I make, the lime zest really brightens up the flavors of pretty much anything you got to be careful. I mean, you can overdo it and get that real limey, that limey flavor. And sometimes if you use too much zest, it gives you that bitter lime flavor. So you kind of got to be careful. But yeah, I can see where a little bit of lime zest mixed in with the blueberries going to brighten that blueberry flavor up a little bit. Hell yeah. Good stuff.
That was kind of my take on the tart too. I mean, if you hadn't told me there was lime in it, I probably 50-50 whether or not I would have guessed there was lime in there.
Yeah.
Obviously when I looked at the menu, they said blueberry and lime. Okay. Blueberry was very forward. Lime was kind of just, like you said, it brightens it up, brings a little of the fruit flavor out. It kind of cuts the acidity kind of cuts the body down a little bit too. Right. So yeah, it would definitely be blueberry forward, lime, secondary flavor boosting up the blueberry flavor.
Kurt Stock has his world famous cream ale that he makes. This is just a beer, and he uses that lime juice and that lime zest in that cream ale to make it, world class.
Yeah. And just a little bit really brightens things up. You're not looking at making a limeade or a lime beer or a lime mead, but I think a little bit of lime zest can really brighten anything that you're. And I could take this back to my culinary expert, Ash Fishbein over at Zap House, and put the question to him. In fact, what? I'm going to send him an email, but I'm sure I'm right on point here. I mean, adding lime zest to just about anything is going to just brighten those flavors up a little bit. So again, we're not talking about adding so much lime that you're going to introduce that limey flavor, just enough to kind of bring out some of the brightness in the fruits and whatnot. Before we move on here a little bit, I just one thing I want to talk about, this tropical braggot that I got going on. I asked Ryan earlier what he thought of those Azacca hops. Jeff, I know you're familiar with them too. I used those in this tropical bright. This is that 96 degree thing that was fermenting here. And I'm really looking forward to this. Now, I used 2 ounces in it, broke it down into, different, like a 60-minute edition, 30-minute, a 5-minute, and then right at flame out, a half ounce each stop. And I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, it smells amazing. The aroma coming off the fermenter when I was fermenting, when I, cracked the top open and took a peek, was just amazing. So. And this thing was made with 4 pounds of Pilsen DME, roughly 5 pounds of honey. So the ABV is kind of up there. It's going to be up around almost 8%. The 3 pounds of honey went in just right at cool down at 100 degrees, and I put the other 2 pounds in at high Krausen and just let her rip. It's got 1 pound of Crystal 20. And about 14 ounces of Canadian honey malt. That's it. Besides the Azacca hop. So and this the Omega yeast, Hornadal Kvik. Looking for some good things out of this project. So let's move on. We got enough time for I think maybe one Facebook friend. But before we get there, let's do this first. Brian Dean Birch began his kombucha brewing adventures in 2006. As his love of brewing grew, so did his techniques. Beginning with 2.5-gallon ceramic crock, he honed his skills. Moving on to a 5-gallon glass vessel led to a great visuals of kombucha fermentation process. Finally, an oak barrel was purchased and the alchemy evolved. Flash forward a decade, and Dean's Kombucha is still brewed the traditional way in small batches with the original, well-cared-for culture. Dean's Kombucha is the only Minnesota commercial kombucha brewed in oak barrels, fermented with whole organic fruit and in small batches. No shortcuts here. You'll taste the difference. And more importantly, you'll feel the difference. Give it a try. Find out where to get Dean's Kombucha at deanskombucha.com/locations for a store near you. And hey, Dean, thanks for supporting the 2019 Iron Bee. Hey, let's get after a couple of Facebook friends here if we got time. Jeff, have you got, I think Ryan had it last time. Let's go to Jeff this time.
Sure. So I have one that's probably just right up our alley from Reddit, of course. User Ghost of Elliot says he needs advice for his first braggot. Says, hello, I'm a mead maker who's going to do my first braggot soon. I've been reading a lot and I have a few questions. 1, when to add the honey? Some recipes add the honey after a week. Some add it to the wort after grain boil. Any advice or preferences? I'm aiming for a dry braggot. Would adding the honey after a week make it sweet, or could it still go dry? 2, what type of yeast do you use? I've only ever used champagne yeast for mead, but I'm not sure how it would act with wort, especially if the honey isn't added until later. Any other do's or don'ts would be appreciated. So, first things first, guys. What do you think is the appropriate time to add honey on the braggot?
Well, my preferred and recommended time to add the honey in the braggot is at high kreuzen. That is when the foam from the grain or your wort, your barley or wheat or whatever oats, whatever grains you're using, when that wort, which is the equivalent of a must, when you're making your mead or your wine, is at its highest foaming point. And sometimes it'll come, when it comes down, you can see like that ring, of how high it got, that like crusty foam ring there. But at that highest point, that is when I like to add the honey. I like to add the honey there because it will maintain some of the aromatics and a little more of the flavor. Now, if you don't have the chance to do that, let's just say you're Michael Trainer and you're going to go on a motorcycle ride. Let's just say he wanted to find out what Carvin's cucumber lime tasted like, and he said, "I'm driving to Scottsdale, tonight, and I'm not going to be back for a couple days." Well, okay, you're probably going to miss high kreuzen then, but what you what you should do at a minimum is wait until your wort. So you've boiled, you've taken the grains out after you've either steeped or lautered or sparged, that kind of thing, and then you've boiled it. Wait until that comes down to less than 100 degrees. So when you get below 100. Then add the honey, because you'll still retain a little more of the aromatics and flavor than throwing it in. So, do it then. As far as yeast, I like using the beer yeast based on the style of beer I'm making. So if I'm making a Hefeweizen braggot, I use a Hefeweizen yeast. If I'm making an IPA braggot, more of a yeast that's typically used for IPAs, or same thing with my stouts. Now, if you're not basing it on a style and you're saying, well, I picked some of these grains, some of those grains, some of these hops, some of that hops, maybe this adjunct, maybe that spice, now I want to add some honey, and it's not really a style. Well, then you got two choices. You either go with a really clean yeast, so thinking like a USO 5 or something along those lines, or you throw the yeast in that sounds like it can produce the flavors you want, and then there's no rules, and you just kind of do it that way. As far as having it be sweet or dry, that is not so much going to matter at the time in which you add the honey, with one slight exception. Rather, the gravity that you are putting together and the yeast tolerance. So if you're using a yeast that can handle 12% or 14%, let's just say 12, and your gravity is going to give you a potential alcohol of 12% or less, it is going to dry out. If you've got a potential gravity has potential alcohol of 15%, but that yeast can only handle 10 or 12%, there's going to be some residuals left behind. Now, that one exception that I said would be if you were boiling. And if you were boiling the honey or the wort for a very long time, and you're going to start to produce some unfermentable sugars, you could still leave some sweetness behind, or if you still didn't hit that full alcohol tolerance. I've done that with some of my Bochet stouts, where the gravity is still below the alcohol tolerance that the yeast can handle, but some of these really complex, unfermentable sugars have been created that still come through in the taste. JD, what anything to add?
No, I think. Well, I mean, I kind of learned, from you. I mean, when you started down this Ryan Braggot path here, almost a year ago, I think now. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think it all comes down to the, if you're brewing to style, what kind of style of yeast, match it up to the yeast that you want to use. I mean, take, for instance, the Scottish ale Braggot thing I use the Scottish ale yeast. Because I want to mimic some of the flavors that you would find in a Scottish ale. So, but hey, here again, Michael Trainer, he kind of exemplified the fact that, dude, you can do anything. Use whatever you think you want to use and go for it. Get your methods and your process down on paper, figure out where it is you want to go with it, and just do it. You may wind up with something really good, or, like me at times, I have fed the sewers of Los Angeles a few times with stuff that I just didn't think was all that good. And if that's the case, then you start over and you do it again. And do something a little bit differently this time. So no, I think you're right on the money. It's a big world out there when it comes to stuff. This Ryan Braggot, I mean, come on, we're talking do anything, any flavor, any yeast, any adjunct. It's like putting a mead together. Okay, yeast, honey, and water, and whatever else you want to throw in. And that's the name of the game. Well, guys, we're going to leave it right there for tonight. So, hey, thanks for listening. Special thanks to home brewer Michael Trainer for hanging out with us in this episode. Hey, let us know what you're brewing. We might even give you a call. Email us info@themeadhouse.com or send us a message on Facebook or Twitter. In the meantime, hey, happy mead making. We got one more to go before we take our 2-week hiatus, but that's it for this episode. Ryan, flip the lights off. Jeff, slam that door shut. We'll be back next week with episode 136 of The Mead House. We're gone.